Oh, okay, we're recording. Awesome. We'll go straight into it then. All right. Everybody should be able to see this screen, which should be my VS code along with GitHub. Yeah. Okay, cool. So we're gonna be going over the bank assignment. I have the README pulled up here on the side. It's I'm not gonna read through all of it, but the main learning goals is creating classes, create methods inside the class to perform actions, and learn how Python does error handling. So we're gonna create a bank class, which will contain your account and future account logic. So you create your account class and it should have the following functionality. A new account should be created with an ID and an initial balance, should have a withdrawal method, should have a deposit method, and should be able to access the current balance. A new account cannot be created with the initial negative balance. It should raise an exception. And the withdraw method does not allow the account to go negative. It should output a warning message and return original unmodified. Okay, awesome. So it looks rather simple. We're not going to need a runner PY. Rather, we only need a bank and an account class. So in the bank class, it looks here says that it's going to be inheriting or account. So I know that I'll need to import from, or actually from account UI or import account. Okay, great. So here, I'll start building my class. And now start creating the methods as well. So in the account, so here I know that I need to be able to create a new account, and it looks like all we'll need for the account will be an ID and balance. So then I'll make an initialize method. Interesting.
I think that comes in a little bit. Yeah.
What day is this? Where's this code at? Or where's the requirements at?
Oh, let me figure that out for you real quick.
Week 3, day 1, I think.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll go over the first part real quick, and then after that, we'll move on to all the CSV files and the rest of the functionality. So now we got self.id is equal to ID. And then we got self balance is equal to balance. All right. And then the next thing that we'll need a withdraw. All right, and then this one it's gonna need an ID.
Hey Francis, can I stop you there real quick?
Go ahead, send it.
Yeah, okay, so I was this whole time, I was looking for a place to sit, so I wasn't paying attention. So is it possible to, what did you do up to this point? Like, I just barely got it, that's why.
Okay, great. Yeah, so far nothing has really been done. I just have two files. I have the bank file and I have the account file. And then in bank, I imported account. And in the account file, I'm currently creating the initializer and then working through a couple of methods or the hypothetical of what the methods are gonna look like. And then from there, once I start seeing the CSV files being opened up, I can actually clean up what the functionality would be. Does that work, Lee?
Yeah, okay, I'm caught up now.
Awesome. Alright, should have a withdraw method, so it looks like we have a try and then it has to be able to raise an exception. So it's gonna try to. It's gonna need the parameter of the amount that it wants to withdraw. And it's going to need the ID. And it looks like we're gonna need an accounts array that will be holding all the instances of account. So now I'll be able to iterate through the accounts array. And then right now, as I'm iterating through it, I'm gonna write a comparison statement to check if the account ID is matching the ID that's being passed in as a parameter. And if so, I'm going to grab the account balance. And then I'm gonna subtract the amount to withdraw that was passed as a parameter. But I also want to make sure that this doesn't turn into negative numbers. So I guess before I do this statement, I probably want to create a different, another if statement. So then I'll go ahead and throw in an if statement asking if account balance is greater or equal to amount withdraw, then this will happen. Okay, and now as far as throwing an exception, Wyatt, for this part, do you by any chance remember the exact syntax for throwing an exception?
Yeah, so it's raise and then exception with a capital E. And then you can do parentheses and put a message in the parentheses. Like withdrawing too much money, something like that.
Okay. And I'll take this out of a try because it's not actually giving me an error. And then I'll fix my indentation. And I don't think I actually want this to be an else. Rather, I want this to only be triggered if nothing happens before. So right here, I'll make a return. Okay, and then that should be able to work through the actual withdrawal method. Does anybody have any questions about that? Because I went through that really fast. Oh, Luis, I think your hand's up.
Yeah, I got a couple questions. So
Sounds
that raise, what is that raise doing? An exception? I don't know what that is. Never
Gotcha.
seen it before. Yeah.
So the raise is actually a way of like interrupting the program, and then it's saying raise an exception, right? So an exception is basically an error. If
Mhm.
an error doesn't automatically happen by saying, I want you to raise an exception, I'm telling the program, hey, even though there's no error that actually happened, I want you to pretend like there was one, and I want you to deliver this specific message,
Awesome.
right? So I'm
That's
not receiving an error
Yeah.
from my actual program, but I actually want to see that there's a problem. So instead of creating an else statement and having it print something, I'm just making a raise exception and telling me what the problem is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. I like that raise exception thing. I might use it. And also another question. So I noticed that you put two parameters in the withdrawn function. So ID and amount to drawn, but in the instructions it just said it should only take one parameter, which is the amount of withdrawn. Where I seen it somewhere.
Is this the part you're talking about?
Uh,
I think that's a little later.
no, that where I give you the
Let's see. So this is part one.
yeah a new
Should withdraw method that accepts
the
a
single
single
parameter, yeah.
parameter which represents the amount of money that will be withdrawn.
Yeah,
You should return the updated account balance. Okay, great.
but you put ID and the amount of drawn, so
Right. So it looks like, for now,
I mean, I mean, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying, like, I was curious, like, how did your thought process, like, oh, I think I should add another ID, or like, I just wanted to say, what was your thought process, like,
so as of now, the way I was thinking about it is I would need an ID to be able to match the accounts here, right? Because without the ID, since I don't have the bigger picture yet and I'm just working off of this, what I have right now, I thought the ID would be used to iterate through accounts, match the IDs, and then I could use that account number to actually make my bank balance change, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question, Luis?
yeah, for sure, for sure.
And then I think, Jim, you were bringing up something.
I had a question. So for me, if I was going to start this, I want to start by wanting to know what my bank balance is. And I know there's a lot of ways to start this, but the reason I'm asking is it just seems so like you have to know so much to go in and start with a logic of withdrawal. My process would have been, let's make sure we can somehow report and see everybody's account and how much money they have in the bank. Then I would want to write some sort of a test, look at this list of amounts and start printing successful. You had to put a print statement here that says, yes, indeed, they have enough money. And it just seems like such a, not a stretch.
There's missing pieces, right?
Not missing pieces, but you just have to know so much more stuff than we already know to get this started. So I'm not saying this is wrong. I'm just, it just hard to get my head around how you came up with the function withdrawal. And I get it, if we thought a little bit longer, and you've done this a lot more, I'm no real, I guess what I would eventually would like to see is how we kind of test this line by line or function by function and confirm that what we're trying to get out of this is what we're getting. And I'll just hang up and wait.
Okay, awesome. Gotcha.
To
Yeah,
go-
I'll make sure to do that. To go off of that, so I get you. I'll try to do more of the flow. The way I was trying to direct this is going down the line and then tackling each problem as we came along, each requirement on the README. But I definitely get where you're coming from, Jim. So as far as he said, right, he would like to be able to see what his actual balance is. When you go to an ATM and you go and you see your ATM introductory when you type in before you make any type of withdrawal, I'm assuming it would show you what your balance would be. So we'll do a method where it would actually grab an account. And then same thing, we'll iterate through self.accounts. And then in there, that's where we'll match the ID. Okay, great. And then lastly, we'll actually return the account. Okay. And then in bank, And then,
I just want to say also to give you guys a different perspective, I thought of this a different way. My thought was to put the list of accounts in the bank class instead of the account class. But there's, a bunch of ways you can do any problem. So um those are all good questions because you can approach it several different ways.
okay, great. And then I don't want to get into the CSV reader quite yet, but for now, I'll just work with this. And then I'll go ahead and try to create an instance of account. And then from there, what I can do is what's going on here? Why are you angry? I think it's freaking out for no reason. There you go. Okay, so right now I'm just gonna test out the withdraw method. I'm passing in the amount to be withdrawn. I created an instance here. My ID is 1. And then I have the original value of 1000. So it's gonna go through. This, as of now, this part won't matter. And I'll change these to self. All right. So then I'll go through and I'll say if self.balance is greater or equal to the amount withdraw. So in this case, we're passing in 200. So we know that should work. Then it's going to go ahead and make the change and it's going to return my actual change, right? So I could print and then I'm probably going to get an error because this is technically a string. So I want to turn it into an integer. And then I want to turn the whole thing back into a string. String integer, so that balance.
You could also just make ID and balance be integers too.
I could. I'm thinking that the
When we
uh,
do the CSV.
yeah, the CSV file would more than likely pull them as strings, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay, so I'm getting an error. So it's saying greater than or equal doesn't work because it's a string being compared to an integer. And that happens right here. So I gotta change that into an integer type. Run it again. All right, so we see my original value in the very first print statement, which is 1000. And the withdrawal function goes through and it says withdrawal was successful. New balance is 800. That's our return statement that we see here. And then we print the new balance in line 21, which is my account balance of 800. Is everybody good with that one? Send it, Luis.
What up? Luis?
Yeah, okay. So to answer James' question, you know how he wanted to see the balance uh before he take out the money? I think you can put print my account dot balance before the if statement, maybe like that he can see it.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So later on when I go on to applying this method in the bank account, which is, technically this is our runner, which would be the bank. My idea was that when we're working through this menu here in bank, that's where we would actually see our balance go into a while loop. And then from there, make whatever changes we need to make to the withdraw method. And we would also be able to trigger the grabbing the account method from there.
Alright, yeah, that's
Francisco, can you try withdrawing like 5,000?
I could, yeah, let's check it out. Okay.
Let's take a look at this error message.
Boom, there it is.
So does everyone see how exceptions work?
Send it, Luis.
oh my bad. I
Oh,
didn't know what
okay.
you meant.
Awesome. Yeah, so this is basically the exception right here. It comes out as a big old error message, even though we didn't actually have an error, right? But then we get exception or raise exception, not enough funds. All right. Awesome. I'll continue moving forward. I'm taking the silence as in everyone's good to go. All right. And now we need a deposit functionality.
Should we try and work through deposit together?
Yeah. Go ahead, send it.
All right. Who wants to start it off? Who can give the first who can get the argument here?
You would need the amount you want to deposit.
Nice. And what's next?
I think you would just do int self.balance plus equals amount.
And then we want to do one more thing to turn that back into a string.
On that line right there.
Yep.
Put a string in front of it and encompass the entire line.
Nice.
Okay, let's see if that will work.
You forgot to close the parentheses on line 19. Just
Um,
gotta add one more end parentheses in the end.
We'll also need to return the value if you want to see.
Cool.
what parentheses are you talking about, Luis?
And line 19, you know how in front of the string there's like a red little squiggly line under the first parentheses? It's because there's not an end closing parentheses after amount of deposit.
I think it might be because it's having trouble like doing the plus equal with this typecast.
Yeah, I believe that if you're doing the plus equal function, it might be easier to do it this way.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I could type, I promise. All right. Awesome. So we see the very first balance is 1,000. We move on to withdrawing. It withdraws 500, leaving us with 500 left over. We see the deposit. We throw in the deposit and we get the deposit was successful, and the new balance is 800. And then the very last balance would be 800 to ensure that the data was actually held. So everything's working the way we want it to so far. Awesome. And should be able to access the current balance on account type on anytime. Great. Okay, error handling. Any new account cannot be created with initial negative balance. This should, did we not do one for creating an account yet?
I think we got to add that to the init function. Anyone have any ideas of how to implement this?
I mean, you could set it up as a string dunder method.
Oh, are you talking about the accessing the current balance at any time?
Yeah, I thought that was the question. What were we asking about?
We can do that. I was asking about the right below that, a new account cannot be created with initial negative balance, but let's do this dunder method first.
Oh, that ain't it. Okay, awesome. So now we have the dunder method, but I believe we're working for grabbing a new balance, right? That's what we're looking for right now. Okay, so for creating a new account, what is the actual limitations for creating a new account? Just ensuring that the ID is not matching and that the amount that's being passed in for its initial balance is not negative. So I'm gonna go ahead and iterate through all of the accounts that are gonna be inside of this array. And I'm gonna check it to make sure that they don't match with the new ID that I'm trying to pass in. So if it's equal, it's gonna return false. Or we'll return false for the time being.
Can you put that as a comment out there on the on line 25 or something?
Line 25.
I think-
Gotcha. Does that work for you, Jim?
Great, thanks, man.
So there's something else I think we're going to want to do to this method. I think, does anyone remember class methods versus instance methods?
I definitely get where you're going with it. Why, as far as adding class methods, for now, if you don't mind, I would like to leave it as an instance method. Just so that I could get this functionality working. And then once we start actually working with inheritance and bank, then I'll go ahead and start adding the class method into it if that works with you.
Sure.
Awesome. Okay. So create an account. And then for creating account, I wanna turn false. Okay. Else. Okay. So let me break down what this is actually going to be doing. So this works through each element inside of accounts. It matches the ID. If the ID is matching, that's obviously not what we want because then we would have a repeated ID. So it would return false. If it works through all of them and it doesn't actually trigger that return false functionality, it's going to then check the balance. If balance is less than 0, it will return false. But if balance is not less than 0 and the ID is good, then it's going to create an instance of account and we're going to append it into account on line 2. And we'll see a success statement as a return. We'll see a new account was created. Everyone good with that? Awesome. Okay, so as of now, all of this is working correctly. And then now we could go ahead and, oh, go ahead, Luis.
I'm sorry. So I know we're creating an account, but how exactly are you creating an account? Like, how are you creating the ID, and how are you gonna create the balance? Because I thought that's what the whole point of creating an account was, like a function that creates an account for you. Or am I wrong?
Could you break that down for me again, just so I could make sure that I'm understanding your question?
So I would assume that if you're gonna make a create account, it's actually gonna. So I'm assuming that the accounts list already has like some data on it.
Right.
And what I will assume is like if you want to create a new account, you have to also got to create the ID specifically. Maybe not the balance, because when you create an account, the balance might be 0. But how would that create like an ID for you?
I see. So what you're saying is rather than us passing in an ID that we would want to manually create for the user, you want for this to automatically create an ID for the user that is not a repeated one.
Yeah, because if the user were to put their own ID, it could match someone else's ID, and when the program could just automatically do it itself. Well, I'm just thinking like too into this, but no, just continue to your lesson.
That's a good question, but let's see how would we handle it if a user input an ID that already existed. What would you want to do?
I will probably iterate through each ID in the list, and I will see if it matches with that, then return false, just like how you doing right there. Well, yeah. And then like if it does, if it went through the whole list, then I will create an ID from the last, from the biggest, from the last ID plus 1, I guess. I mean, that's if the IDs were going like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I don't want to repeat the 1, I mean, if I don't want to repeat any of them.
Count the
I will
length of
go
the
for
number of
all-
records and then add 1.
Yeah,
Count the length of the number of people in account owners or whatever you want to call them.
Got you. Okay. So what we
Because
could,
you could potentially choose a value, like, but you're checking, okay.
got it.
So I have another quick
okay.
along his line there then. Why can't we or don't we break this up into 2 operations? You confirm that it does or does not exist. and then in a different line, just use the deposit function.
But in the deposit function,
So
okay, I see what you're saying.
I'm
Yeah,
not telling you
definitely.
to do that as much as I'm asking, why would we not do that? If you already have this add money to the account function, all we really have to do is add a user if they are not there, and then add some money to their account. So I think so maybe that's my question. How can you call a method from inside of a method?
Okay, got it. So, I get what you're saying. So all we're gonna do is we're gonna move this if statement that's checking if balance is 0 up to the deposit function. We'll remove it, and then I'll go over how to create an ID manually here shortly. But instead of actually doing this, okay. Got it. So the reason why we wouldn't use this deposit method in here is because we're creating an account, right? So if I'm creating an account, meaning that I'm just creating the instance, this method wouldn't be available for for this function yet, right? Like if that instance hasn't happened yet, then the methods that belong to that instance technically don't exist. And in order for me to create an account, I need to ensure that the balance is greater than 0. Does that line up, Jim?
Yep, yeah, that makes all kinds of sense. Yeah, so the way you explain it does that. I wasn't thinking that early, but you're right.
Awesome. All right. And then for the ID portion, so we could do it this way, where we're ourselves going to be throwing in an input and putting in a new ID. But I get what Louise is saying, where we would grab the very last one and basically just add 1 to it to create a new ID, right? So what I could do is I could go ID is equal to self dot counts, and then I want to grab the index of the last one. So this will return the very last instance that's inside self dot counts, right? And then from there, I can grab the ID. Then I could turn all of this into an integer, add 1, and then turn all of that, oh, hello, into a string.
Can we look at the counts CSV file?
Yes, so this right here on the very left side, those are the actual ID numbers.
Mhm.
So if I were to grab the last one, it would be this
So
one.
they're already sorted, so we can do that, what you're doing right now.
I
but
see what
that-
you mean, because then
yeah.
technically, then the question would be if they're
You would
not
have to
sorted.
sort it first. Yeah,
Right,
I was just double checking that. 'Cause
Okay.
that's very important.
right,
Um,
good
but it
one.
looks good.
Okay, awesome. But now we have this functionality created if we don't want to iterate through them and give the user the ability to put in their own ID. Does that work with you, Lise?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, awesome. So now we got this working, and then now to go over what Wyatt was saying. This right here, creating an account, since there is no instance, in order for this function to work, it needs to be a different type of method, not an instance method, but a class method. Does anybody know how to turn it into a class method? And if so, I would appreciate it if you could.
You can put the add class method above the function that will
There.
create into, yeah.
Okay, the add class method is above the function. And then does everybody understand what this actually does and the difference between a method that belongs to a class and a method that belongs to an instance?
I believe that with the instance, you're gonna have to call the class dot in the function. But in this case, I think you could just call the function itself, I believe.
That's
I
close.
mean, the class. Yes, I think.
Okay, so let's say I try to print my account. So let me remove all this. So I go into my account instance and I try to access creating an account. And I pass in a balance of. Ooh, and then this right here needs to be an integer. Okay, let's say I try to pass in a balance of negative 1,000 or 100. When I run this, I get an error. And this error is telling me that the problem here is that the list index is out of range. So in this case, it's because there's actually nothing in there. I guess right now it wouldn't be a good time to demonstrate how the class methods work, unless you have a better idea why.
I think it might be easier if we go back to the letting the user input their own ID, just because that's how the CSV files are set up. So,
Or you could also find the largest value and add one to that.
Right, I think that's what we have here. Right, Jim? Where we find the largest value and add one. I think Jim stepped out. Okay. Awesome. We'll leave this for now and then I'll go back whenever we go into the actual bank class. Why is this freaking out? It's just screen. It is closed. Okay. Visual Studios being Visual Studios. Okay, great. So this is gonna be my account form functionality, and it should be working. And it looks like I'm also gonna need something that's gonna give me back all of the accounts and unpacking the CSV file. Okay. So now let's get into the actual CSV file of accounts. Does anybody want to walk me through building this CSV reader function?
Francisco, I think we can do those two bullet points that you have highlighted there before we get into the CSV. Before we get into loading CSVs.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. If we want to do that, then I'm still gonna need a class method operator. And then I'm gonna go through all the accounts. And I'm gonna print each individual instance of an account. Okay. Awesome, so that takes care of all accounts, and then which one's the other one? Find by ID. I think we already did that one. Yeah,
Oh yeah, we did.
find by ID.
Nice.
Awesome. Okay, so now moving into the CSV files, do you want to walk me through that one, Watt? Or
can.
Tesla?
Yeah. So yeah, we need to import CSV. Then we need to know where our CSV files are located.
Okay. Awesome.
Nice. And then can throw on like an as accounts, something like that, just to name it. And then we do csv.dictReader. And
Don't you need to have a dictionary variable set above the width?
you don't need to set it above the width. We just need to set it equal. We just need some variable equal to cvs.dictReader of accounts. Yeah, and then I think we want accounts in that parentheses, but it might be easier if you rename that like CSV accounts on line 45. And then do CSV accounts in the parentheses there. So this is going to open the file. It's going to call it CSV accounts, and then it's going to use that dictReader method to turn the CSV file into a list of dictionaries, right? Now, how do we make the new account instances from this dictionary? Does anyone remember?
Before we start making instances, could we print each individual return from here so that we can see what it's actually
Yeah.
the dictionary that we're returning?
Yep. Because I think there is going to be something wrong with this right now. So let's just loop over the account variable and then print each.
Oh, that ain't it. So we're going through the CSV reader. Did I miss it?
It's in there somewhere. I was looking at it earlier. You could do Command F and search for it. I don't know if that works within. Yeah, there we go. Okay, sweet. There we go.
Okay, we'll just print row for now.
Let's just see what we got.
And I want to actually access the method. Okay, great. So this returns this, but it looks like that's not really what we want, right? So we're getting the actual values getting pulled out of the CSV, but it doesn't look like we're matching the information to what it needs to match.
Does anyone know what happened here?
It's being left in a dictionary. It's just, we're just showing dictionary rows, aren't we?
So we are looking at dictionary rows, but do you guys know how csv.dictReader figures out what the keys are in each dictionary?
Yeah, we're missing the field names.
Yeah, exactly. So there's two ways we can do it. We can either add those. What CSV dictReader does is it takes the first line of the CSV file and it makes those the keys, unless you specify the field names. See how in that on the online the description of csv.dictReader, if we look at the arguments there, it says class csv.dictReader f field names equal none, and then the rest of it after that. So if field names is set to none automatically, and if we don't add field names in the call, the function call, then it uses the first line of the CSV file. So that's why all the keys in each row, like that 12, 12, 1, 2, 3, whatever, all the keys in each dictionary there is the first line of our CSV file. So we want to add, we can either add those rows or what the names should be called to the CSV files themselves, or add them when we call csv.dictReader.
Okay. Got it. And then I'm just gonna pull up the accounts and place them side by side with this reader function so that I can look at it. So in the first one, it looks like we have the actual count. Then I'm assuming this would be the balance, right?
Yeah, it's in there. I think you just, yeah, right there.
And then the last one is open date. Okay.
You have a typo in the word balance.
Thank you. All right, so now if I try running that again, it's giving me a problem. It's saying the key error ID.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
so I did this correctly.
if you want to add to that line 46, when you call, if you want to add an argument to that function,
Mhm.
you can add a list of the column names that we want. So like right after CSV accounts, do a list of ID, balance, and open date.
Okay. And what was that look? What would that look like in syntax?
So like, yeah, comma, and then, yeah, exactly like that.
Comma here.
And then you can do just one list. So yeah, like that. Perfect. So now it knows what to, now it knows the name of each column as the header. You can leave that part there.
Okay. I was just gonna print the
Okay.
row. Okay, awesome. So now it's working correctly. But here, I don't have an open date being one of the parameters. So I'm gonna add that in there real quick.
Before we move too far past this, can you find a way to duplicate lines 4 through 8 using the keyword arguments unpacking effort? Or is that applicable there? Maybe it's not applicable there.
As far as quirks go, I believe that's gonna be in bank when we start using inheritance, once we start using quirks. I may be wrong.
I mean, I think we can do it here. I think we can do it here.
Okay,
If we just, if you get rid of that date.now part and just leave the, yeah, the open date as an argument. Or you can, yeah, you can leave that. And then if we go down to where we make the new, like in creating account, I guess right now we're just printing it, but on line 49, instead of printing, we can add,
And in place of changing it, can you show us what it looks like in 2 different ways and comment one of them out?
yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
all right, let's do it the regular way now. So we have that down, and then we can do the keyword args second.
So this would work for now, but up here for open date, I was trying to give it a default value so that when we start creating accounts, we can have that default value. Do you remember how date.now works by any chance?
Yeah, I think you need to import. I think it's import from date time, import date.
I'm looking at the docs as well, and the date is should be a capital D.
Oh, good. Thank you. There you go. Okay. And just to make sure that's working correctly, once everything is appended, I'm gonna print the actual list of accounts. Okay, import date, cannot find date inside that. Awesome.
Let me look this date time thing up. Forget exactly the syntax.
For the time being, I'm just gonna remove it. Okay, awesome. So now I have my list holding every single one of my instances of each individual account. Does everybody understand how this dict reader worked? Go for it, Lise.
What were you trying to do before? I didn't know what you were doing with the just now with the import and stuff. Like what were you trying to do?
Oh, so up here, I was trying to import a function called date.now. That way I could give it as a default value for open date. So that when we created an account, instead of passing the date that the account was being opened as a parameter, it would trigger the default value of open date and use the current date of your location on your local machine.
Okay, cool, awesome.
Yeah, I think that should do the date time stuff. What I just sent in the chat.
Okay, let me check it. Oh, it's datetime.now.
Yeah, I apologize. The one that I was looking at was for JavaScript.
Oh, no problem at all.
Got the two confused.
Okay, cool.
I think date does it as well, but date time is more what we're looking for, right?
Yeah, I think date does they do similar things. I think date might just do the day, and date time does like the day and time.
Okay. All right, so we just saw how we have this list, right? And this list has an instance of every single thing that's coming out of the CSV file. But I want to be able to see the dunder method now. So now I'm gonna call the all accounts function. And the all accounts function is gonna iterate through that list and print each individual instance, triggering the dunder method. So now we see the ID and the balance for each one. Go for it, Lise.
Okay, can you show me exactly, okay, for that ID 1214 and balance, where are you getting that from? Where is that? Like, how did you make it look like that? Using the Thunder method, right?
Yes. So the dunder method is right up here. I'm
Okay.
telling it to return. Here,
And you called the whole, what did you call it to
So the first thing I call is the opening CSV method, and that creates all the instances and appends them over to that list that we're using up top.
okay,
And the second one I called was all accounts, which iterates through the list and prints each individual instance.
And that line 43 print account that calls the dunder method.
okay. So the function all accounts, can you show me what that's printing?
Yes, so all accounts is printing each individual instance. So here I'll do it like this. All right.
Actually, you know what might help is want to do just like comment out the dunder method and then run what you just ran and then run it again with the dunder method.
Gotcha. Let me show this real quick.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm so sorry. I'm clicking stuff that I'm not supposed to click. All right. So in this one, we're gonna see in the first one. So we see from opening CSV, and that's happening here.
Okay,
So we see from opening CSV. And then we print the entire list that's holding all of the different instances inside of it. Right?
okay, yeah,
The next one we see is from all accounts. So I go up, I see from all accounts. And here in from all accounts, I'm gonna go ahead and iterate through every single element inside of this list and call each individual element, right?
right.
And when I call the individual instance, that then triggers my dunder method, and that's what I'm seeing repeated right under here.
Okay.
So yeah,
I'm sorry, how did you, how did you, how were you able to print out everything from like, above the, so versus Francisco MVP, right there, yeah, how were you able to do that again?
So this right here is just printing out the dictionary that we're seeing right after opening the CSV. But that's not an instance as of now. That's just a dictionary that will be passed into the instance method. Right? So first we see the complete dictionary, which is
Oh,
this.
okay, so you're printing the row, that's how you print
Right.
the whole thing.
And then that gets added into self.accounts as an account instance.
Okay, because the reason why I'm asking is because I always get, because when I try to do exactly that what you're doing right now, like print the row,
Mhm.
I always ended up getting just like the the dictionaries were like the location of where that is, not the actual everything inside like that.
I see.
And I wanted to know exactly like what's the difference and how like each one, how did you do that for each different way? Exactly. How did the Thunder method called it and how you print the rows and like how like it prints like the location
It's
of the
showing the
object.
memory address, isn't it? Or the object ID number?
yeah, it's showing the location in memory. But the reason that so line 44 where it says print account, that line, what that does is that it looks at what type account is. And account is a type of this class account that we just created. Then it looks in that class account and it looks for that double underline str double underline method, the dunder method. If it finds the dunder method, then it prints as the dunder method is defined. So if it, what we had, I think, was printing the ID and the balance for each account. If there is no dunder method, so like if you comment out that 11 and 12 there, and then we run that same thing, you'll see it'll just print out the memory locations because it doesn't see the doesn't have that method to reference. Does that make sense?
That always pops up for me no matter what I do. That I hate that. I just hate that, seeing that.
And then
I
now
was-
if you go back and uncomment out that dunder method, and now it's doing what you want.
The reason why you're getting it, Luis, and I only know this because I've seen your code before, is because the way that you're grabbing your elements is by using the filter function. if you're using the filter function, you need to call the very first index in that array that gets returned in the list position in order for the actual dunder string to be triggered by the method, by the instance. Does that work, Luis?
Yeah, it does.
Okay,
I got another question.
send it.
Can you do a string method in the same class? Like two different string methods, like if I wanted to like, oh, for this instance, I want to return, yes, the self ID and the balance, but in the second string instance, I want to just call the time, the date and time. Or you cannot have two, I believe you cannot have two string methods and two Thunder methods in one class. Am I correct or am I wrong? Because I tried doing it like that and then it did not do it and did not work.
So you can't do what you're saying because then the print function wouldn't know which string dunder method you're talking about. So you couldn't add like another double underscore str double underscore method. But what you could do is just add a method like print with time, or print with open date, and then just make that method, like an F string and print the ID, the balance, and then the open date.
Yeah, so
Can you show us that?
yeah, that's exactly what I did. But so why would you even need the string method at all when you could just make a method like that? If you're gonna use different type of what do you want to print the strings,
The string method is just useful because then you don't need to call a method in order to print it. You just use the print, like the built-in print function.
I understand.
You showed us there, Wyatt, is a second way to do that. What if you wanted a third way to represent printing?
So you could do that. You could just add a third or another method. It just, again, you would have to call the method something else and then just call that method explicitly, like account dot print with all info and then whatever. You wouldn't be able to just say like print account, because then that print wouldn't know which one to go to. Or the print would always go to the string method.
Can you guys please show us the third one also? Then show us how you'd add the third one, please.
Sure.
And so what this returns then is, if we end up doing this, we get 3 columnar or 3 tabular layouts. Is that true?
What do you mean?
So you had the string method and is it represent our PER method up there? Go up.
Yeah, so I'm experimenting with the question that has been presented. And so according to this, we can call the individual method as well. If you just leave it open to print account, the dunder string method is the default that will always be printed. Now with the representation method, I'm trying to figure out how exactly it is that you would call it.
I think you need to include the double underscores.
Yeah, that's what I just, yeah, let me.
And so because you sent that one on line 47 through without arguments, it added them all.
947 without arguments.
So that line 47, that the arguments that are getting printed are the ones defined in our string dunder method. Because print, just the regular Python print function, it looks for the string dunder method in whatever class it's in and uses that however that's defined.
Okay, so let's say then we are in the whose class are we in? We're in the account class. So account class, we want to have a method that shows that prints ID, name, ID and name. Another one that prints ID, name, and balance. Another one that prints ID, name, and address. How do you create many methods under one uh, on one class to print many different ways.
Right, so that's what we have here. So what we have here is we have the string method that will automatically be triggered, right? So this one will automatically be triggered every single time. Then you could add a representation method. The representation method will be alternate. So let's say that, for example, one of your instances didn't have a parameter that you called here. Instead of returning a failure saying that that parameter doesn't exist, the representation method will be triggered, and that's what will actually show up on your screen. If you want both of them to appear, you can just call print, and then also call the representation method on a different print statement, and that's how you get both of them to print out. If I wanted to create a third one, in that case, that would just be my own thing, and I could do something like and I could just have it return one thing. And whenever I call this next and last print statement,
So that can have one or many fields in it, and you could do some math. You could add 1 + 1 or multiply the balance by 50 or whatever. You got anything you want in that method you just created.
right? Because this one's just a regular method, right?
Okay, that's been a big question of mine for a long time. This is really helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what Jim was trying to ask too, because I had the same question. How can you like print different things without going through the string method? So Jim, I think you could just create your own method.
Yeah, you can.
What-
Sorry, I was not understanding that question. You could create as many methods as you want.
Yeah,
You could have 20 different custom string methods if you just like make them yourself and name them normally and call them like you normally call methods. You can only have one dunder string method. Does that help?
Kind of. So again, what is the benefit of the dunder string method as compared to that more explicit one we just wrote?
exactly. Because there's more restrictions with the string method. When there's more flexibility with writing your own methods. I had the same question, Jim. Thank you for saying it.
The benefit
Go ahead.
the benefit of the dunder method is being able to just say print and then whatever the instance is, instead of saying instance dot my string method or whatever.
Is it possible to do a class class method override from outside that class? So let's say if we want to change the dunder methods functionality inside that class, can you do it outside?
I get what you're saying. You can, but you would need to have an actual variable holding the instance. And then you would have to call that variable to change its individual dunder method. Just the same way that you would call any other function inside of the method. It's just that instead of just calling the method, you would have to use an equal sign and then set in what you wanted to return after that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so now I'll move on to owners. And now I'll try to tackle as much of owners as I can. But account owners, there you go, owners. Okay, so owners has an ID, a last name, a first name, an address, city, and state. But, yep, that works correctly. City and state. Okay, great. So now self ID. is equal to ID. Okay, great. Now we're gonna need a dunder method. So right now I'm just returning the ID and the first name. And then I'm gonna need an opening CSV function and a place to store them. Okay, so I know that my opening CSV function is gonna look pretty much the same.
I have a cool one that my mentor sent me.
Ooh, let's see it.
Okay. It's a lot like the one that Wyatt did. There's a tiny bit different. It's coming to everybody now.
Sorry about that. I was grabbing some water. What's up?
So he said he wrote an empty dictionary first. Then he said largely like Wyatt did with open the directory name, read only as file. And then
just assigned each individual position to the dictionary.
yeah, well, then what we did though, so what I had thought was helpful was to create a dictionary with the ID as the key, and then another, I think it was another list with all of the things in behind it as the value pair. So maybe that's not helpful here, but I wanted to store mine in this other project as what a list, I thought.
Yeah, no, that's definitely helpful. It seems as if the effect is the same. Unless I'm missing something.
It made it simpler for me because I got to see that the inventory or that the inventory dictionary, or in this case, the owner's dictionary. So again, you don't have to use it. I just it made it much simpler for me to understand.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think that is actually doing the same thing, but just a little more explicitly.
Okay, now we got owners. And then just so you guys are tracking, all I'm doing is filling in the parameters for each slot in the dictionary. If I make a typo, please let me know.
So, just to, I know what you're doing, but just to clarify, what you're doing right there with the ID, you're making new keys, right? Because in the CSV file, it does not have the ID, last, first, and address on the top in the first line, right?
Right.
So you're just creating keys. All right, cool. I did
In
not
my
know you
case,
could do that.
we use the ID as the key, and then we also put the ID and all the customer information in as the value pair also.
Could you say that again, please?
What we did was we were going to build a key value pair. The ID became the key, and then the value had all information to include the ID.
I see. So you're saying that you're saying we should try to change the CSV function?
Not necessarily, that's just the way he showed me.
Oh, I see. Okay. Awesome. Let me see if we could get this to print all of the owners at this point. And then okay, missing one position argument self. And then that's because this needs to be a class method. All right, awesome. So it's working correctly, but I'm not sure if I'm seeing it the way I want to see it. So I just want to print row real quick, just so that I can ensure the dictionary's working. So we got the ID 21, last name Bell, first name Jessica. The address seems to be working well. We got city and state. Okay, awesome. So the dictionary was being the dict reader's working correctly, and it's unpacking the CSV file right. And now this is happening. So now let's do one that will show all customers. And then this also needs to be a class method. And I don't want to see that anymore. Okay, so now I run it. The first thing that I get is my list with every single instance inside of it. And now my dunder method is triggered when I iterate through the list. And it gives me the first name of every single client, and it gives me the ID. Awesome. Okay, and then we have an account owner to I guess account ID CSV that we're gonna have to work with. But this one, where would we call it? Would we call that in the account, the owners, or the bank?
Bank.
The relationship table or something?
Right.
Hey, I'm gonna step out real quick to use the bathroom. I'll be right back though.
Sounds good. All right, so we're gonna actually use this table in the bank class because the bank is the one inheriting from both account and owners. So that's where we can actually use that information to make the relationship. Awesome. So now when my bank gets initialized, it's gonna automatically trigger the opening CSV functionality, and all of the instances will then be added into owners and accounts. So now for my bank class, I also need to be able to open up this table. So now I'm gonna need another dict function reader. And rather than creating it, I'm gonna create a dictionary outside. And we'll just call it matching table. And we'll do it this way. And then yeah. So, I'm gonna work through opening the CSV. Goes through account and owners. I need to import CSV. All right. And I don't want to create an instance. So here we'll just use, I think the first one is account ID and the other one is owner ID. Actually, I think I might leave it empty in this case. And I want to update matching table. Okay. I'm gonna test that out real quick just to make sure that's working. Huh. So it looks like it worked for. No, that didn't really work at all.
Tab in on that print statement on line 18. Is that why it's only printing off the first one?
Well, it seems like it's mismatching. So the first thing that we see here is 12, right? And then after that, we see 25 and 23 for some reason. So it seems like it's matching the opposite sides for some reason. So let's just print row for now. And see what row will look like.
Is it
So
because
when
you didn't input any keys in the dictionary?
There you go. So that's what it is. But technically, we don't want there to be keys. Or I may be going this off the wrong way. So basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create 12 to be the key and 25 to be the value. Do you know a better way of doing this functionality, Wyatt?
Yeah, so so account is going to be the list of dictionaries, but one thing that that's going on here is since we didn't specify the column names, it's just using the first line of the CSV file.
Yeah.
So we want to add that into that. Yeah, right there.
So that's the account ID, and then we need the owner ID. Okay.
I think you need a comma on line 15 there between the two arguments. Between CSV accounts in the list.
Okay.
Yeah, right there. Okay, now let's just run this and see what prints out.
Okay, so now we see account ID and owner ID. I guess we could make it work like this, and then we could just go in each individual index, maybe append it, and turn this into a list.
Yeah, I think probably the most straightforward way to do it is to say for row in account and then do matching table of match table and then square brackets of row and then square brackets account ID.
Wouldn't that well, let's try it out. Go ahead.
And then comma or colon, sorry. And then row square brackets owner ID. Oh wait, sorry, I messed it up. You need to put a second square bracket right next to the account ID there. And then replace that colon with an equal sign.
Okay, so second square brackets.
Just just to close that. Yep, and then equals. Perfect. I think that should do it. Cool. Does that
Nice.
match up with the
Yeah,
that
that's
what
what
we're looking for?
that's what I was trying to get going. That's nice. How did you get that?
Yeah, so line
I-
17,
Yeah.
matching table is a dictionary, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the way you set a key value pair in a dictionary is you say dictionary name, square brackets, key equals, and then whatever value. But because we're setting the key value pair from another dictionary, and that which would be row in this case, we can just use self.matching table. Key is going to be the value that's in row with key account ID equals the value that's at key owner ID in row. Because we know each row is just like if you print account there and then
Sorry, could you go ahead?
yeah, if you print account and then we do print self dot matching table, it might be like easier to visualize it.
Do you want it inside of the for loop?
No, I think that's good.
Okay, so account just comes up as an object.
I think you got to do. Sorry, you were right. Put that print account in the for loop. My bad.
Before we keep going, do you guys understand this? I think Luis has a question. Go ahead, Luis.
Yeah, my question is, I just got back. What are you guys doing? And no, I do
Okay.
not understand what's going on.
Gotcha. So basically, as of right now, we opened up this CSV table and we're creating a dictionary on line 6. Basically, once we have that dictionary, this will allow the user to type in this specific ID, and then we could refer back to this dictionary to just use it as a table, right? So if the owner types in that their ID is 25, we know that their account number is 1212. If they type in 24, we know their account number is 1213, and so on. Does that
Okay.
answer the question, Lise?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right, so now we have the data table. We have everything pulled up. It looks like now they can create a savings account. And okay. So in the interest of time, I know in about 7 minutes, I'm gonna be kicking off assessment 3. So we'll go ahead and pause this for now, give everybody a break, and then I'll meet you guys in the main breakout room. And Wyatt and Tesla, if you're still here, if you guys could meet me as well in the main breakout room, and then we'll all go over assessment 1 and work through it together. Thank you guys so far. I hope this was productive. If you guys have any type of feedback, assessment 1, I apologize, Jim.
Will you be posting this soon?
The recording,
Yes, please.
Yes, we
that would
will.
be quiet.
I'll
guys.
I'll figure out where to post it.
It was very helpful.
Yeah, can you let us know where you're posting it? Because I would like to rewatch this as well.
Yep. Definitely.
Definitely. If you guys have any specific questions that you guys may have between today and tomorrow that you guys want answered specifically, please message us individually and let us know. All right, awesome. I'll see you guys in the main breakout room at 1:30.
Thanks, y'all.